navigation bar using HTML, CSS, and then the flex property we have in CSS, which we have learned in our previous lesson. All right, so to get started, I'll just create a new folder here, the tutorials folder I'm using for this program. So project 3, then you can open this with your VS Code. So if you don't know how to go about opening a folder in your VS Code, you can check from our previous video, or you can just look from here. All right, so when you open the folder in your VS Code, you can click on File, Open Folder, then choose the location where the folder is. Or if you don't have that option on your system, you can directly search for the VS Code on your machine, open it. So once it's opened, you can click on File, Open Folder, then you choose the folder where you created your file. So in this case, it's in tutorial, so I just select that folder. All right, so here I'll first create my HTML and then the CSS file for the styling. So let me call this file style.css. And then let me increase the font size to somewhere 25. All right. So first I will just generate the HTML5 structure and then change the title of the page to navigation bar. Then next, you have to always remember to link your style sheet. Okay. So this is just the path to your CSS file. And then from our previous video, anytime you link a CSS or any other asset to your HTML document, you can hold your command or control key, then you click on the file. If it opens the file, it means that it was able to link to that document or resource. All right. So to create a navigation bar, you can group the navigation links in a div, section, anything at all you prefer to use. But it's advisable to use the right element for the right purpose. So we have what we call semantics and then what we call syntax. The syntax can be correct, but the semantics might be wrong. So anytime you're creating anything containing navigation links, we use the nav tag because for navigation. We use div for creating divisions. So you can even use div for your navigation, but it works alright, but just that the semantics is wrong. Alright, so I'll create nav, and then next I'll have my logo. So for most websites, their logo is an anchor tag. I mean, now anytime you click on their logo, it takes you to their homepage. So it means that their logo is within an anchor tag. So here it could be an image. So you can check how to add images to HTML document from our previous video if you don't have any prior knowledge to HTML. Right, so here you can provide the source to your image file. But in this case, I'll be using a text. So let me call this, let me use the B for bold in HTML, my logo. All right, so here, let me click go live to launch it in the browser. So here I have my logo bolded here. So next, I'm going to list out the various navigation links we'll be needing on the web page. So previously, if you remember from unordered list, we use UL and then we use LI to list the various items. So initially we listed, let's say, Ghana, Togo, Benin, Nigeria, which will be listed out like this for you. But in this case, each item is supposed to be a navigation link. So anytime you click on, let's say, home, it takes you somewhere, about, it takes you somewhere. It means that each item in the LI tag is a link. Okay. So let me expand this and then have an anchor tag here. So I'll need home, another LIA tag, about, services, portfolio. Then let me add one last one, which is contact. All right, so here on the web page, I have my logo and then the navigation links. So next is to apply CSS to make them look pretty nice. So here I'll have the logo on the left and then have this navigation link somewhere on the right here. Okay, so remember from the classes and then IDs class, to give a class on ID to an element, you have to do that in the opening of the element. Okay. And then also we learned you can select an element and then style it. But the disadvantage is that if you use nav anywhere in your HTML document, it means that it's going to use the same CSS file or the same properties you specify for the nav element. So to style specific items, you can choose to give them a class, or you can give it an ID. Okay. So in this case, let me use an ID and then let me give it a navbar. So I'm going to use navbar to represent the whole navigation link. All right. So in my HTML file, the first thing I'll do is to remove the default paddings and margins added by the browser. So I'll use asterisk, which is the universal selector. You can select margin, set it to 0, padding to 0, and then box sizing to border box. All right. So next, you can select your navigation bar. So since it's an ID, we'll use hashtag followed by the name of the ID. So you make sure it's the same exact spellings you are using in your CSS file. So here I'll give the navbar a display of flex. So now if you check from the web browser, the default behavior of the URL tag is mostly block. But in this case, that's changed to flex because of the property we just added. And anytime you add flex property to any element, so here because we have 1, 2, meaning we have 2 groups. So in case you want to space them out, it will be quite easier. So I can just say justify content, space around or space between, space even, anyhow you prefer. So because we have 2 groups, it will just space them 1 and then 2. So they are in groups because we have one item here, and then this UL is wrapping all these LI items. So it makes them 2 groups. Okay. So next, I will align the items in the center. So we have the logo aligned in the center. This also will be aligned in the center. So next, we need to change the default behavior of the LI items. So the LI also by default are block. So we need to change it to inline. So we can target the LI items here by doing navbar UL and then LI. So here I'll change the display to inline flex. Okay. So by default it's block. So I'll just change it to inline flex. So now we have it inline. So the next thing I'll do here is to add paddings in between the various links we have there. So padding the top and bottom, I'll make it 0, and left and right, let's say 20. I think 20 is too much. 15. Okay, 15 is cool. So next, I'll give some spaces around the navigation bar. The links are too close. So padding for the top and bottom, let me say 25, and left and right, probably 50. Then next, I'll add a background of white to the navbar, and then I'll add a box shadow. So let me say 0 pixels for 7 pixels. Then you choose any color you want. So let me choose black. So we have a black border below here, but it's too deep. So you can hover on the color in your VS Code. Then you can reduce the opacity of the color here. Alright, so I mostly don't like using the RGB, so you can click on it to choose any one you prefer. I prefer the hex. So you save the same thing. So now you have a nice faint color here. Right, so next is to remove the underline we have under each of the anchor tags in the navbar. So to do that, you need to select your navbar, then we select every anchor tag within the navbar. So to do that, you select navbar, and you select every anchor tag. Right, so here, to remove underline, we use text decoration using nav. So this will remove the underline from every anchor tag. So next, I want to make these black. So I'll change the color to black. So that every color of the various links we'll have will be black. So we have black and then black here. So next, I want to increase the font size of the first anchor tag. Okay. So to apply CSS to specific items here. So for instance, if you want to apply inline CSS to a specific item, you can maybe I want to change the color of the logo. So I can put this in something we call a span. So use a span for inline element. So here you can use div, but it is wrong. You can use div, then you can give this a class. Then you select that class in your CSS file, but it's wrong to use a div. So anytime you want to perform any inline styling, or you want to select any element inline to style it, you can use the span element here. So now I can give a class to the span. So let me call this logo. Okay, so inside the nav bar, I have logo. So here, let me change the color to red. Okay, so this is how I want the logo to look like. Alright, so next I just want to add a nice background image here to make the nav bar look nice. So I think this all for the nav bar, but lastly, I want to add a section below here to add an image for the navigation bar. Alright, so let me quickly download. Alright, so let me even get from my computer, but you can also download a picture if you don't have one. So let me get from our previous lesson. So we have some images here. Let me get this. Alright, so I'll create a new folder in the project directory or the current name you created for your project. So let me call this images. Then you paste your image inside. So let me rename this to 1. Alright, so now back to our VS Code. So if you expand the Explorer in your VS Code, you should see the folder you created and the file you added. So I'll create a section here. Then I'll give it an ID of home. So section and ID of home. So here I wouldn't have any content. I just want to add the background image. So I'll just select this ID in the CSS file. So hashtag home. And I want to give a background. So anytime you're adding image as a background, we use background. Okay. So if you use background, you can add both a color or and an image. Or you can choose to use color or image. But if you choose background color, it means that you have specified you want to add only color. Then you also have background image, means I can only add an image. But if you use background, you can add any of them, whether a color or an image. Right. So here URL, you provide a path to your image file. So my image is inside a folder called images. Then inside it I have 1.jpg. Okay, so I'll give this a height of 100 VH. So by default, every browser has, or yes, every device has a height of 100 VH. Okay, so the image has been displayed, but it's not looking nice. So next we need to apply some properties here. So we have background position. So let me make it center. And then background repeat, you say none. So this is needed when you are using a very small image for your background. So if the image is very small, it's going to repeat itself for several times until it fills the entire screen. But if you specify it to not repeat, it wouldn't. Then now you set the background size as cover. So background size as cover. So now you have the image nicely added as the background, ready to watch your Netflix movie. Alright, so here you can choose to write all these, or you can simply write it here, not repeat. Center / the cover. So all this code is the same as this one. So let me comment this out. So we still have the same effect. Alright, so I think this will be all for the navigation bar using HTML and then CSS. If you have any questions or you need clarifications on anything, you can leave that in the comment section below. See you in the next video.